And I think when we kind of apply that in thought experiments, it becomes a bit silly, because if a man was kicking cows randomly on every occasion, I would favor the cow. So that you try this for yourself. Just have a think about this. It's easy. It's not a difficult one. A man is kicking a cow. Would you A, allow the man to continue kicking the cow because you have a bias in favor of the human, or B, intervene and stop the man causing needless harm? I think that's pretty easy. And then we can kind of extend that and say, what about if a cow was attacking a human? In this case, you might try and stop the cow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What if it was attacking two humans, a newborn baby and a child rapist? Well, you might stop it attacking the newborn, but the rapist? Maybe not. Maybe you'd let it do it. These are all very, very important to the claim of speciesism.
Yeah.
Because that specific kind of definition of speciesism, which the guy who came up with it put forward. But while we're on thought experiments, and this is going to circle back to what AJ was saying. Here's one that might just demonstrate that speciesism isn't in and of itself morally wrong at all. So I want to stress before I put this forward, because as I said earlier, speciesism to me is a kind of subcategory of in-grouping. So there are many, many cases, which I'm sure we can all think of, where in-grouping is absolutely wrong. And even within like the subject we're talking about, which is farming. So I'm using this as an experiment to show and kind of all things being equal example. So it might not be as cut and dry as people to show that kind of speciesism is not as cut and dry as people would have you imagine. So imagine, AJ, I'm aiming this at you because this directly relates to what you were saying earlier, that there are two children in a house fire and they're equal in every way. And I say that to avoid silly caveats like one is going to turn out to be the next Hitler. So you can only save one of these two children, but one is a complete stranger and one is your child. Is it morally wrong to choose the child, your own child, over the stranger? I would suggest that it's not. I would suggest attempting to save any of them is a virtue and letting both die is wrong. But choosing A over B, even though you have a connection to A, is no more morally repugnant than choosing B over A.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, you could also argue that choosing the one that's not your own is moral as well, like whether that's moral or not.
They're both moral.
Because you're saving a life,
Saving any of them is moral, the moral choice. But specifically choosing your own child is not immoral, and that's the important point.
I would say it's hard to argue that if one of them is my child, then in my eyes, trying to make the argument that they are equal is an uphill battle.
Yeah, that's a different thing. But we're using strict parameters here to try and kind of make a point. So.
I mean, if I were in that situation and I truly judged the two children to be equal, even though one of them was mine, maybe I had a child. I mean, I happen to be very lucky and I have two incredible children. But let's say I had a child that for some reason I absolutely hated or whatever, enough so that it brought that person in my mind on par with a random stranger. In that case, it might be different. But to your original point, or I think the original intent of your question was, obviously I would take, in fact, I might even say it was, well, no, that now that I think about it, I wouldn't say that. I was going to say it might even be immoral to not take your own child.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that, Scott. I was going to be what I was going to say. Like, if I would feel that if I didn't save my own child, that it would be unmoral to myself, because like morally as a parent, you're
Right.
supposed to protect your child, right? So
It
wouldn't
would
be
certainly
immoral?
be hurting yourself
Yeah.
more. You'd be
Yeah.
causing harm to yourself.
Yeah.
Although you'd be compensated by the the help that you're giving to the other the other parent. And so
True.
it's tough to judge. But yeah, I don't think anybody could say that saving your. Have you found people? Is that do people say that it would be immoral to take your own child?
No, this is part of a. This is the first part
Oh,
of
okay.
a
All
bigger
right.
thought experiment. So I'm
Gotcha.
glad you're discussing it so much already. Though.
Yeah.
So-
Real quick, I would say that I think what the thought experiment is doing in relation to the vegan conversation is to say that we will always choose our own species, like our own children,
Mhm.
over other species. Like
There is
and
more
is that
to it,
important?
AJ. Hold your horses. There's more to it.
Okay. All right, go on.
So now we're going to move on. Now we've kind of established that it's not immoral to save your own child.
Okay.
So there is a human animal. This is the next part of it. There is a human animal A and non-human animal B. Both are starving. You can kill the animal and save A, yourself, or sacrifice yourself and save the animal B. What
Okay,
is
so
the
you
right
are the human animal.
action?
You are the human animal in this.
You are the human animal.
Okay.
What
Sorry,
is the
yes.
right action? Because I would suggest that, again, as in the previous case, saving either is a virtue and not saving any is wrong.
Right.
So choosing yourself is not wrong. It is at least as virtuous as choosing sacrificing yourself to the animal.
Right, and ultimately it will be a personal sort of. You will use your own personal opinion and experiences in what decision you make. But is it immoral? Yeah, no, I agree that neither one would be immoral.
Right. And I think that, I mean, of course, it's going to boil down to, how exactly are you defining virtue and how exactly are you defining vice and that kind of thing. But I think in general, people wouldn't disagree with, well, it was do or die. It was you or them, and if it came down to that, I think most people would, would kill the animal. I'm sure that there are groups of people that, even some religious groups that would say, that they would let themselves die to feed the animal.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the final part of this.
All right, here we go. This is the gotcha.
Important part, and this is something AJ touched upon earlier in the conversation as well. This has got implications for the vegan. So many vegans, and I've got to stress, not all, although AJ said earlier that most vegans would argue that if starving, they would eat an animal to survive. In which case, I would say, welcome to speciesism. So let's magnify that. What about farming animals when we're not starving? That's a totally different question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I would say not at all. Because even en masse, the answer is still the same. It's not immoral to kill an animal to eat. You might argue, and you might have a case, that refraining from killing animals is more moral than killing them for food. But you can't, if you agree with both of the previous steps in this argument, which most vegans, as AJ said earlier, and in my experience as well, do say, you cannot argue that it is immoral to kill animals for food. So by far the biggest ethical, this leads me to this, and the overall picture of this. By far the biggest ethical question is not what we farm, but how we farm. And in that, I've got very, very little disagreement with vegan considerations. But I think following the steps of this thought experiment, we can see that actually killing animals for food is not immoral. We've just walked through the process of why killing animals for food is not immoral.
So to play devil's advocate a little bit here,
please do. That's why we're here.
Yeah. So, so what? And I'm sure you've thought of this, and so I'm sure you have an answer prepared for this. But so the difference then is that in the second example, you didn't have another choice, right? And so, how are we going to make the jump to killing the animal to eat, even when you have other choices? And I know that any type of consumption, any type of farming, any type of food production is going to have going to cause harm. But let's say that there was another example that we could show, and again, this is a thought experiment. Let's say that we could show that doing this other option would be less harmful than killing the animal to eat.
Can you tell me where in the previous options we didn't have a choice?
Yeah, we have a choice, but it's a choice between your own survival and the survival of the other animal. In the last option, if we had an option to not kill the animal, there is a branch on that tree that leads to us and the animal both living.
Yes, there is, and that is exactly why I put in that last option that we can argue that it's ethical to let me think of how I worded this. You can argue that refraining from killing animals is more moral than killing them for food.
Mm-hmm.
You can make that argument, but you can't make the argument that it is immoral to kill an animal to eat. And they're two different positions.
So are you saying that there's a threshold of morality then?
Okay,
that above this point is immoral, below this point is okay, kind of a thing?
Like depends on the situation.
So is it based on whether you need to eat based on survival or based on just because?
This is the point of the thought experiment, is to get you to think. And bear in mind, this thought experiment is talking about veganism as a moral imperative. It's not talking about being vegan, just like as a general person.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's specifically about veganism as a moral imperative. Now, we've already agreed in the first two steps that speciesism is not a consideration in this, because we're happy to choose in the first step our preference.
Yeah.
We're happy to kill an animal for food in the second step to feed ourselves. So speciesism itself is not a consideration in this. And that killing animals for food is not necessarily immoral. Now, if killing animals for food is not immoral, then the argument that veganism is a moral imperative does not hold.
Yeah, because if I say, like I said earlier, if you have a tribe that relies on any kind of meat that they hunt or fish to survive, then I will be like, well, it's morally okay for them to eat meat. Then that means that I am giving up all of my argument for morality towards animals, and I am saying, you know what, it is no longer a moral argument. So I can't use it for this situation, but not for that one.
And this is where we jump back to the earlier conversation we had about the definition of veganism itself being special pleading.
We're all falling into Richard's trap.
I was going to
say,
he took it in a big circle.
You got me, Richard. I cannot disagree with you.
Don't ask a philosopher onto your show.
So Richard, let me ask you this then. Let's go another step then. What if the other animal was another person?
Yeah, human.
I was gonna go there.
I was gonna ask that too.
Absolutely. That's another step in the question.
So can we say then that killing that person is okay, or at least is not?
If it was for
immoral?
Survival, it would be okay, but would it be immoral or immoral?
I think it will be, because we use that for instances of self-defense. Like if a man were to be trying to take advantage of me physically and I were to kill them, that would not be considered immoral, right? Yeah. And if, let's say, I was stranded in an island with another human being and we were both about to starve and we cannot find any source of food and we have not been able to hunt any animals and all we have is each other, it will probably be survival of the strongest.
And a quick shout out to the chat who are talking about George Carlin's bit on cannibalism. So I just wanted to recognize that. Big thumbs up from me.
Yeah, I there's just one. I know I've kind of dominated this, and I kind of suspected I might do at the beginning. There is another kind of thing I want to raise before we go, if people don't mind me doing that, and if there's any direction you guys want to take it in, feel free, because I don't want to railroad it as much as I have done.
Richard, we all just love listening to you, so go for it. Let's hear it.
Bullshit, man, Scott.
No, I am not bullshitting you at all. I love talking to you, Richard, so please do.